Hi, my name's Kirsty, and I had a pretty special childhood. Most moms teach their kids things like how to ride a bicycle or how to build a sandcastle. Well, not my mom. She taught me something that could have landed me up in jail. I was 5 the first time I saw it happening. She slipped a leg of lamb under her coat and dropped 2 huge steaks into her bag. Then she grabbed my hand and made me follow her out of the grocery store. When we reached the car, she let out a sigh of relief and grinned at me. That was fun, right? Next time you try, but don't tell Daddy. I had no idea at the time that what she was doing was wrong. It was our little secret, and it quickly became my favorite game. The older I got, the more we did it. She taught me all her tricks. And once, when we went to my friend's birthday party, I watched as my mom stole some of my friend's gifts. And then on the way out, I did the same thing. It gave me such a thrill. And we never, ever got caught. It was weird because we didn't even need the things we stole. We were pretty rich, but Mom always said that wasn't the point. She just enjoyed it. And she kept everything in this giant locked-up cupboard. One time, she made me steal a watch for my dad's birthday. I put it on my wrist and covered it with my sleeve, then ran out. But the security alarm went off. I was in such a panic that I pointed to a homeless man sitting outside and told the shop owner that I'd seen him do it. Then I walked away and handed over the watch to my mom with a smirk on my face. She patted me on the head and told me I was a good girl. I tried so hard to impress my mom, but one day, everything changed. She lost out on a promotion at work to some man that she said didn't even deserve the job. She was so upset, so I stole her some flowers and her favorite cake. She got angry and threw the cake at me and told me I was useless, and that if I was going to steal, I should at least steal big things. Suddenly, I didn't want to steal anymore. I looked for a job so that I could save up some money and be able to buy my own chocolate and makeup and stuff. My dad gave me an allowance, but I've got used to the life of being able to steal whatever I wanted. I found a super lame babysitting job, but the pay wasn't bad, and the family were clearly loaded. Their house was filled with all kinds of expensive art, and one night, I decided to snoop around after they'd gone out. The kids were in bed, so the coast was clear. I snuck into the parents' room and almost jumped around with excitement when I spotted the mom's jewelry box lying open. The most incredible gold necklace with a giant ruby heart was sitting right there. No, I told myself, don't do it. But the urge was too much. I snatched it up and shoved it in my pocket. You see, it was my mom's birthday the following week. And even though she'd shouted at me, I still felt bad. I wanted to make it up to her. On her birthday, I gave her the necklace I'd stolen. She didn't even ask me where I got it from. She just put it on and kept hugging and kissing me. That night, her company were throwing a birthday bash for her. It was her 50th, so it was a big deal. She wore the necklace and it looked gorgeous on her. Dad was away on a business trip, so I went with Mom. And oh, how I wish I hadn't. When we arrived, I spotted someone familiar. The couple I babysat for. But what were they doing there? I thought about running outside, but it was too late. They'd spotted me and sauntered over. And that's when all hell broke loose. Turns out that man works with my mom, and he's the one who got the promotion. His wife suddenly went berserk when she spotted the necklace and started accusing her husband of cheating on her with my mom. Of course, my mom was clueless that I was even babysitting for them and blurted out that I'd given it to her as a gift. I didn't even have time to explain myself. The cops arrived and took me in for questioning. So I told them everything. How my mom had taught me to steal and how she had a special cupboard at home filled with things she'd been stealing for years. I was so sure I'd be sent to some kind of juvenile prison. But in the end, it was my mom who got sent to jail. They searched our house, found the cupboard, and the rest is history. As for me, well, looks like my mom taught me well. In fact, I'd say I'm a better thief than her. Wouldn't you agree?
Hi, my name's Marianne, and I just love animals. I live on a ranch in Texas, and we don't just have cows here. We've got horses and pigs and sheep and all kinds of other little animals too, like dogs and cats and even some rabbits. I'm especially fond of this one rabbit we've got. His name's Snowy, and he's got the softest, whitest fur I ever did see. My parents work super hard running our ranch, and they don't like me and my brother getting too involved. We're allowed to help with the feeding, and I'm allowed to go horse riding whenever I want. But when it comes to the business stuff, they don't tell me anything. So I tend to keep myself to myself, and I don't want to make the other animals jealous, so I'm pretty careful when I sneak Snowy some extra carrots or hugs. One weekend, my parents had some clients visiting from over in Louisiana. They must have been a pretty big deal because my parents had been running around like crazy, cleaning the ranch and dusting the house, and Mom even got her best china plates out. I knew they were interested in buying some of Dad's most prized bulls, so he obviously wanted to make a good impression. I spent the whole of Saturday helping Mom fix supper. I did the salad and the dessert because I don't really like touching the meat, to be honest. So while Mom prepared the chicken, she sent me off to do my homework and asked me to put on something nice. I could hear Dad laughing and chatting away to the clients on the porch, so it all seemed to be going well. I thought about popping out to give Snowy some carrots that I'd put aside while fixing the salad, but I couldn't see him from my window. He must have been hiding under the porch. At that moment, my mom called my name, so I figured I'd just go see Snowy after dinner. I made my way down the stairs and into the dining room and shook hands with the clients. They were both rather large men, and they were both dressed similar to my dad, kind of like cowboys. I guess that's the standard uniform around cattle ranches. We sat down, and everyone commented on how delicious my salad was, although Dad made a joke about me being stingy on the carrots. I silently chuckled to myself as I thought about how happy Snowy would be getting a late-night treat from me later. Next up was the chicken, which was so delicious. Mom had skinned it and roasted it with potatoes and smothered it in her homemade gravy. Everyone seemed to love it, and one of the clients asked my mom to send over the recipe at some point. It was that good. As we finished up dessert, Dad and the clients pulled out some contracts and sat down to finish negotiating. I excused myself and ran up to my room to grab the carrots and headed outside to feed Snowy. I headed straight for the side of the barn that he usually sleeps in, but he wasn't there. That's strange, I thought. Maybe he was still hiding under the porch. I looked there, but I couldn't see him. I ran to the other rabbit hutches in case he had been feeling lonely and snuck in beside one of the other rabbits. He wasn't there either. That's when I started to panic. What if he'd run away? Or worse, what if he'd got run over on the highway? With tears in my eyes, I ran to find my dad. By this point, the clients had left. My dad was feeding the horses in the stable. I ran straight up to him and asked, "Where's Snowy?" Dad looked at me in confusion and asked who Snowy was. I told him that Snowy was the big, white, fluffy rabbit, the one that I was always playing with. He scratched his head and laughed. Then he said, "Oh, you mean the rabbit we had for dinner tonight? He sure was a tasty one, wasn't he?" Suddenly, it was like someone had punched me in the chest. I couldn't quite believe what I was hearing. I sat down on a pile of hay and started crying my eyes out. I felt sick. I looked up at my dad and started shouting at him. I said, "That's not funny. This isn't a time for jokes. Snowy is missing, and anyway, I know that was chicken we ate." Dad just looked at me and told me to stop raising my voice. He said it was rabbit we ate, and that he'd warned me not to get too attached to any of the animals here. I could barely hear him as he kept lecturing me about how this is the reality of life on a ranch, and I should know better. I thought about Snowy and his twinkling eyes, and the fact that we had just eaten my most favorite pet I'd ever had. I threw up. I didn't even have time to think about it. I just couldn't stop myself from vomiting. I couldn't bear the thought of Snowy being inside of me. I wanted to shout at my mom and ask her, how could she? But then I had another thought. From that moment on, I decided I would never eat another animal again. What did you think of this story?
Hi, my name is Vivian, and recently I've really been struggling with acne. If you also have acne, you've probably tried to treat it at some point. It all started one morning. I woke up to see I had a horrible acne breakout. It was so embarrassing. Pimples covered my entire face. Thankfully, it was a Saturday, and I didn't have to go to school. Phew! I could just imagine what the snobby girls who hang out at the front of the school doors would say if they saw my face. I went online to look for homemade recipes for curing acne. Sounded like a good idea, right? I found a recipe that seemed legit, and I was pretty much ready to do anything at that point to get rid of my acne. So I put all my faith in this recipe. I mean, the website was pretty popular and the recipe had loads of positive comments. What could go wrong? The recipe called for some food ingredients as well as essential oils and witch hazel. It required egg whites and honey. Luckily, I was staying at my grandma's and she absolutely devours eggs. So I headed to the kitchen to get some. Sure enough, there were eggs in the fridge. There was also a pot of honey on the counter. Jackpot. I mean, I didn't want to go to the shop for the ingredients with my face looking like this, so I was relieved that my grandma had everything I needed. She even had the oils in a little box in her bathroom, and witch hazel too. It was clearly my lucky day. I went back into the kitchen, bringing the oils and witch hazel. My grandma was there and asked me what I was up to. I didn't really feel like explaining, so I just said I'm applying a mask that uses honey and eggs to cure acne. She laughed and said, "What a great idea." I felt so happy to hear this. Then I took out a big plastic mixing bowl and a large spoon. I read the recipe and added all the ingredients. I stirred it until I felt everything was mixed up properly. I then applied the mask to my face. After a few minutes, I started to feel a burning and itching sensation on my face. Maybe it's meant to feel like that? It probably just means that the mixture is working and getting rid of my acne. I mean, what other reason could there be? Even though my face was in pain, I decided to suck it up and I left the mask on for as long as I could handle. It annoyed me that I needed to go to such extreme measures just because I'm unlucky enough to have acne. Why can't I just have flawless skin like my friends Jessica and Amy? Life is so unfair. Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore. I ran to the sink to wash off the mask. I splashed my face with lots of cold water and scrubbed it with my hands, pulling off globs of the mixture. I then rushed upstairs to get a wet washcloth. When I looked in the mirror, I almost screamed. My face was so red, more so than you could possibly imagine. It was also puffy. I called my grandma and she came running, and when she saw me, she immediately called my parents as she wasn't sure what to do. She wanted to call an ambulance, but I refused. I told her that my mother has a solution for everything, and I'll just wait for her. But my skin was so irritated and painful by then. When my parents arrived, my mother tried to calm my skin down by putting some calming cream on my horrible rash. We waited about 15 minutes. It was seriously getting worse though. My parents drove me to the ER right away. After seeing a nurse and waiting for a while, we were asked to come in. The doctor looked at my face and said it looked as if the rash was caused by a bad allergic reaction. When I told him about my mask, he said that the lemongrass oil and the tea tree oil were the most likely culprits. He also recommended I go to an allergy specialist to get tested because I might have an egg allergy as well. Even though the doctor was able to ease the pain and the rash on my face, I still felt horrible because the blemishes were even worse than they were to begin with. I was so upset, to the point where I couldn't hold my tears back and I started crying like a baby in front of the doctor. Surprisingly, the doctor was not taken aback by my dramatic reaction. He explained that it is a problem that many teenagers like me suffer from at this age. He then told me I should never be embarrassed by it. I laughed even though I was still kind of upset. It was ridiculous to end up in the emergency room over some stupid acne. My grandma felt bad as well for telling me it was a good recipe, but we all tried to convince her it wasn't her fault. The doctor prescribed me some ways to help me control the acne, which he felt was safe, and I reassured him that I wouldn't be taking the matter of my health into my own hands again, that's for sure.